Rochester Northern supports upstate New York construction with over 400 employees, 250 trucks, 9 ready-mix plants, 4 blacktop plants, and 40 aggregate mines. But their most important number is your bottom line. Contact them today to see why Rochester Northern has been the choice for contractors and project managers across upstate New York since 1929.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. I am Paul Russo, joined as always by Kyle Evans. Kyle, it's been an interesting week. We have the Yankees stock falling, we have the Mets stock rising, and both with some interesting storylines all kind of intertwined in between.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping it would be the other way around in terms of the two teams, but yeah, the Yankees have been average for a little while, as we're going to get into, and yeah, the Mets continue to surprise many. Got a nice long winning streak going. I think it should be the longest winning streak, right? Active winning streak in the league right now. So yeah, just the teams have kind of changed directions a little bit again. One team has cooled off while the other is back rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, let's get into it with the Yankees right away. Go 1-2 against the Cardinals, go 1-2 against the Rangers. And with that in mind, you could make the case, Kyle, depending upon how you view things. They're actually not an average team. They are a sub-average team, 40-41 since June 1st. This is, we mentioned it last week. I think it needs to be made again. This has been a common occurrence now with this team the past couple seasons. Get off to these really good, hot collective team starts, hit summer, and it just fizzles out for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's weird because a lot of it's happening so quick, like the bullpen struggles. The bullpen was never really an issue in the first several months of the season. Then lately, they have a 12 ERA in their last 7 games. I mean, that's among the worst in the league. And when you look at the guys out there, yeah, they're not superstars or maybe top names around the league, but they're guys that are capable and should be able to get the job done, and they just haven't. And then some of their pitchers, man, we talked about a lot, they can't give them length because they throw so many pitches early on. Like Stroman was at 52 at the end of the second inning yesterday.
Right.
That's just unacceptable. And then on top of that, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto have cooled off over the last 8 games, and Judge is actually homerless. Is I think 8 or 9 games,
Yeah.
the longest of the season. So when Judge and Soto aren't hitting, the team simply doesn't win, and that's what we're seeing. 2-6 in their last 8, and you also forgot to mention they lost 2 out of 3 to the Nationals, on top of the Cardinals and Rangers.
Yeah.
So they're losing to all these teams below 500, and I'm telling you, I think that's the difference in this race, even though it's only a half game still.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to something we've been saying, where you have to handle business against teams that you should be handling business against, right? Maybe you don't get the sweeps, but you win the series. And that's something that very clearly the Yankees, pattern-wise here now throughout the majority of the season, have not been able to do. It's interesting not to maybe jump too far ahead here for one of the things that we'll be talking about, but you mentioned, again, the issue of starters not getting far enough into these games, and one of the things that stuck out to me doing the notes this morning is Luis Heel in his rehab assignment start on, is it Sunday?
Yep.
Am I getting my days right? Yeah, Sunday. Because I know some teams ended up playing Monday with Labor Day and stuff like that, but threw a 38-pitch first inning. And that's something that Boone even brought up, was like, looked good, but 38 pitches in the first inning is not great. And something that, mind you, he'll be a fresh arm, quote unquote, here in the coming days. Specifically, it's looking like for sure tomorrow. But it doesn't help what this bullpen is going through right now, obviously. And it's only getting in a worse position. Clay Holmes blows his 11th save of the season, an MLB leading blown save against the Rangers on Tuesday, and I don't know. Now it's kind of put the team in this spot of it's going to be closer more or less by committee, Boone didn't outright say it. I didn't expect him to outright say it, right? He's kind of one of the managers, as we know, that all will stick up for his guys, more or less. And he's been there before, and he'll handle whatever internally and not externally through the media and other outlets. I want to throw a little bit of an hypothesis over to you with this question as well, Kyle. Part of me wonders if Ian Hamilton didn't have the back spasms when he did here in his rehab assignment that have now delayed it by a couple more days. Would it be by committee? Because we've already seen Ian Hamilton in his time with the Yankees kind of handle the high leverage spots in the 7th and 8th inning instead of having for the team to go by committee at this point in an already taxed bullpen.
Yeah, the two guys that I would turn to or trust and I think could get the job done is, you said it perfectly, Ian Hamilton and I think Tommy Kahnle. Tommy Kahnle has said in the past that he doesn't really want to close. He likes that 8th inning role. But I think with the experience and the guts he has and the ability to, he's been in the league forever. He knows how hitters are. I think he could get the job done. I laugh at the Luis Heel stuff, turning him into a closer.
Yeah.
It's funny to me. The guy loses control in one inning and unravels completely. Is that what you want? A guy that leads the league in walks coming into the 9th inning against the top of the order in a 1-run game? You think he won't be rattled?
Right.
Come on, guys.
And not to interrupt, but like a completely different role for him.
Yeah.
Right? At a very critical time, no matter what team we're talking about here in the playoff race.
Yeah, so instead of losing on soft contact like it mostly is when Clay Holmes, except for the other night, the Yankees will probably start losing games on walks. And I hate to say it, but that's the truth because his command is just, he never has a start where his command is good. He's always walking a batter. It's just how he is. I guess can't control it.
Yeah.
It's been an issue even in his minor league career too. And the other day in his rehab start, you're facing these minor league hitters and you're having trouble, like you said, throwing all these pitches. Well, it's because he walks so many batters. Can't put him away. I don't know why you would turn him into a closer, and I think that's funny that that's even a topic. I saw Joel Sherman of MLB Network freaking out about it.
I just don't like if I could maybe even then I'm not a fan of it, but I could understand if we're talking way earlier in the year and you're kind of kicking around an idea, but to have to switch your mindset as a player, one, in a situation that I don't think he's ever even been a reliever in any capacity, right? Like I just think you're asking for even more trouble if this was the case, if in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it certainly puts the Yankees, like I said, between a rock and a hard place anyway, as is with this. Clay Holmes, really Jekyll and Hyde type season at this point. And the one thing, I know we talk a lot about the soft contact and obviously even, the blown save on Tuesday was on a walk-off grand slam, but let's think about how he got in that situation anyway, though. One of the things we haven't talked a super ton about with Clay Holmes this year has been his control. It hasn't been great, to put it politely. Again, in fact, you could say in a weird way, the Yankees at the moment were spared on one of the pass balls where I don't know if Simeon got kind of caught out or if he got a bad read or something, but opted to stay at third base instead of taking advantage of the pass ball, wild pitch. I don't know, but that's beside the point. There's been a lot of that by Clay Holmes this year as well that I don't think gets discussed. And I don't know, we talk a lot about Matt Blake, right, and the emphasis on, say, sliders and stuff like that. If that's kind of what, Clay is kind of focusing on is too much, maybe, I guess in this scenario, torque, RPM, whatever term you want to go with on spin rate on these balls, but he has spiked a ton of pitches this year. To me, that is the reason why he got in that bases loaded situation against Langford the other night for the Rangers. And frankly, this 11th time is probably, in my mind, I know it sounds egregious maybe, but it's like 6 times too many to just be at this point now finally being like, we're going to take him out of this role temporarily and try something different.
Yeah, and the thing is, all closers are going to blow saves here and there, but, just even cut that number in half or even gave him 4 extra wins look at the difference it is in the AL
Correct.
East right now.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of those blown losses was against the Orioles before the All-Star break
So
when they should have swept.
That's a 2-game swing.
True. So, I mean, this looms large right now. And, yeah, you could just see it coming the other night. He gets a quick out, and then he gives up a hit and walk. I mean, you're asking for trouble. And I think, honestly, the other night was kind of like it for him. Like, he knew the night before he almost blew a 6-run lead.
Right.
And then when he started walking that first batter, I think his confidence level just totally shot down. And he was like, "Oh man, here we go again." And I think this was the final time where he just ran out of gas and was really worried about making a mistake. And then he hangs the worst pitch of the night, being his final one on a slider. So yeah, they cannot put him back.
And I remember distinctly on the broadcast, David Cohn brought up when Matt Blake went out to talk with him with the bases loaded. It's like, well, this meeting's probably about 2 batters too late. And he was right. I don't know about being 2 batters too late, but it was definitely a batter too late. And now that you're stuck in a spot of you're kind of going by committee, it's interesting. Again, I don't want to jump maybe too far ahead, even though we're closer to it now, but like see Scott Efros get optioned back down, perceived to be the spot for Luis Heel on the roster for tomorrow. Part of me wonders if he even had it some idea other, would he be kind of in this spot of maybe taking the chance? And I don't know. All I know is for a team that has this deep playoff push aspiration, playoff run, to not have a defined closer at the moment, inexcusable, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, and then when Brian Cashman was asked about it at the trade deadline, he said they were set. They never even explored a closer, and then they go out and get 2 arms, one that's already DFA'd, and one that, again, came in last night, even though the runners weren't his responsibility, and gets hit.
Yeah.
Mark Leiter Jr., I believe his ERA is now over a 6 as a Yankee. The 2 trade deadline acquisitions that you wanted to go cheap with because you thought the asking price was high, which it was, but you're telling me there still wasn't another guy that you could have gave up a little something extra for to be more aggressive?
Yeah.
And they didn't. And it seems like this costs them every year at the deadline. They don't get the piece that they need to get them over the edge. And remember in 2017, they wouldn't spend on a starting pitcher. Their first year with the baby bomber window, and they were 1 win away from the World Series. They had an extra starter in that Houston series. They might win that. They might win that series. Just stuff they do every year at the deadline, and they always regret it. But they act like it's okay, and they can just bounce back the next year. Yeah. Well, it's been since 2009. At one point, you go all in, as we said earlier in the season.
Correct. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? I get why some of the guys' price tags at the deadline were high, but I kind of look at a team like Kansas City was able to get a guy like Lucas Ursag pretty cheap, all things considered, and you don't kick the tires on somebody like him. Like I said, it's inexcusable, whole way around. And the fact that we're sitting here talking about this with a team that still has technically that slight edge even in the division. I don't know. It makes you wonder. And you said it perfectly, Kyle. It's you feel better talking about the Mets position than you do the Yankees position in a way right now, which is crazy to think about.
And the Yankees are always banking on these injured players, as I mentioned a while ago. And, they counted on Scott Efros, and they only gave him 2 appearances, and they sent him back down. The first one was rough, but last night he looked good.
Yeah.
I don't understand how Phil Bickford and Tim Meza, just scrubs that they picked up, are still in that bullpen, but you send Scott Efros down, who spent so much time in the minors because they were just hesitant to call him up. And you give him two chances. Yeah. You keep Tim Meza, who got hit really hard last night, again.
Yeah.
Makes 0 sense what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need another lefty. Tim Hill's in the bullpen.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say nothing but respect for Tim Hill right now, which I enjoy. Let's jump into a couple of these injury stuff updates here. Anthony Rizzo, as we know, officially activated off the injured list. I think give him a few more at bats, get some more stability going on here. Hasn't been as great as maybe some people had hoped, but. As I've kind of said, better than the other options at first base anyway right now. So to me, it's always just a plus to have a guy like him back. Austin Wells expected to be back in the lineup tomorrow. Was beaten in the right hand wrist area on Monday night. So he everything looking good. I think they technically classify him as day-to-day, but they expect him back in that starting lineup tomorrow. So bit of a dodged bullet, and everything seems good to go. Luis Gil, as we already mentioned, expected to start tomorrow, Friday in Chicago. Roster space is already open and available to him. And right on the back end of him, Clark Schmidt expected to get the start on Saturday in Chicago against the Cubs. So big spots here for guys coming back into the rotation.
Yeah, Nestor Cortez is going to pitch after one of them. I think it's going to be Schmidt tomorrow or Saturday. So he's going to serve as a reliever for one time through, and then he's going back to the rotation, and then they have to really decide who they're kicking in the bullpen. I think Nestor has to go to the pen, but I guess Luis Gil could be kind of a long reliever in the pen too. So I don't know. I just don't think you take Clark Schmidt to the pen. He was really good to start the year, 2.34 ERA.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't think it's as difficult as they're making it right now. I think just put Nestor in the pen and you're good. And I think he'll do well in a shorter role because he usually gets in trouble when he faces a lineup the second or third time through. So,
what about? I'll save this guy until we get to him here in the list. John Birdie expected to continue his rehab assignment through at least the weekend per Aaron Boone. Also said really he could probably return to the MLB roster at any time. What that tells me is they're not probably thrilled with the production, as we talked about a little bit last week, that they're seeing out of him, but that he is at least healthy enough that he could be back on the roster.
well, he started playing the outfield. He played the outfield last night.
True.
Went 4 for 4. That was his first game out in the outfield. I think they want to give him more reps there, and then he'll come back and be more of a guy that plays around the whole infield like Oswaldo Cabrera, who still doesn't play a lot, which is funny to me.
Yep.
That makes me think that John Birdie is going to come back and take his spot, which a lot of people will not be happy with. But I guess that's what happens when you trade for John Birdie in the beginning of the year. You don't just want to keep him in the minors.
Very true. As we mentioned, Ian Hamilton had been dealing with back spasm. He's back doing his rehab assignments as normal. So delayed kind of the timeline for him by a couple days here. We already kind of talked a little about him, so we'll kind of move on from that. Cody Poteet's remained with AA Somerset on his rehab assignment. That's the name I wanted to ask you about right quick, Kyle. Could he be the guy? I know the Yankees said that he'd be more starter depth, but why not possibly even use him out of the bullpen then if you're kicking the tires around on guys? Why not the guy that kind of is your super sub almost in a way?
Yeah, they still have options. Again, I don't think the bullpen that they have right now is what they're going to roll with in the postseason. But if that's the case, why not make some of these moves starting now when there's 22 games left and you're fighting for a wild card? I'm used to saying that with this team. A division race. It just feels like I think Cody Poteet had 3 or 4 starts. He's gone 5 innings. I think he could come back and help.
Yeah.
With how bad the bullpen is, I think you'd be more desperate and start rolling.
Correct. Yeah. Speaking of that, Lou Trevino transferred his rehab assignment with from AA Somerset to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Ben Rice will warrant option to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Duke Ellis, who I said last week we would not be seeing on the big league roster at all, more than likely. I was allowed wrong, and Ron Marinaccio were recalled from AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Scotty Ferras was recalled and an option back down, and Josh Machewski designated for assignment. He had been down low at Scranton, so that's just creating a 40-man spot on the roster there. Yankees off today, head to Chicago to face the Cubs for 3 games, then return home for a 4-game, pretty big series against the Kansas City Royals. I don't know how to feel about this anymore.
It's 3 against the Royals.
I thought it was 4.
It's 4 against the Red Sox.
So I can't count for 1. Let's not. That still doesn't make things any easier for me. I'm trying to figure out what the hell the Yankees are going to do in these series. Normally first games back for people in the rotation are toss-up games. I would like to think the Yankees could at least get 2 of 3 from the Cubs, but the Cubs have been playing good baseball.
And they have a losing record, so they're going to lose.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
So I guess what I'm trying to say here is 500 for the Yankees is kind of what I'm picturing through these next 6 games. And that can't really be the case, but what other hope have they given us?
I think they're going to go 4-2. Um, yeah, I think they win both series. I don't know in what fashion and what order, but and what
Really?
starts. But I think they go 4-2. I think they're due for a little stretch here. The off day today, I think, is the difference. I think something clicks today and helps them get started in Chicago at 2:20 starts. It's kind of weird. 2:20 on a Friday as well.
Well, that's
And
the
then you
Cubs,
get
though.
and then you get back home, and the Royals have a winning record. They do well against winning teams. They beat Cleveland. They beat a lot of winning teams. Kansas City has actually struggled lately. So yeah, give me 4-2.
Yeah, okay. Normally, I'm the positive outlook one, and you're the pessimistic one. We're roles reversed today. So, yeah, but the Cubs always do Friday home afternoon games. So,
Yeah, I know,
if you've
but the
ever,
other games could have been
if
different.
you've never been, you gotta go. Love Wrigley Field on a Friday afternoon. Um, yeah, let's move on to the Mets. A lot of positivity. 7-game winning streak. Kind of punctuated at least, well, with their last game last night. Jesse Winker, grand slam. Everything, when it's rolling good, it's rolling good. And for the Mets, hard to kind of go say anything bad, at least at the moment. We were on last week and we talked about how, like, man, you can get one more game against the Padres, and it was a must-needed rubber match game against the Diamondbacks, and they got the rubber match, and they have just rolled through ever since. And for them, that's great because they haven't made as much maybe inroads as they had hoped with the wild card. They're still a half game out of the wild card race, but the vibes are still at a good enough spot. And if you're the Mets, you probably feel really good about your position, knowing that you have momentum right now. And quite frankly, not to maybe do our weekend and week out predictions as much, but knowing you're coming up against Cincinnati and Toronto, two teams who are, you know, kind of just sailing through the final month of the season, I mean, you got to feel pretty good about yourself, right?
Yes, but I think the next two series are very important
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because they have 7 with the Phillies still and 3 with the Braves. There's 10 games right there. And then add another 3 against the really good Brewers team to end the year. That's a tough stretch after these two, I would say, easier series. So if they lose either one of these series, that could hurt them because the Phillies for 7 games, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do really well against the Phillies in basically a 7-game series because the games are not really far spread out apart. And then the Braves, you just never know. The Braves give the Mets trouble. It seems like all the time. So yeah, I think the next two series could be the difference. I think they need to go 4-2 minimum, but 5-1 would be ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it like I said, these series, again, coming up for them, not to get too far ahead, you got to handle business, right? If you don't sweep, they got to be series wins at the very least, you know. Anyway, let's get back to the discussion here and positivity and stuff like that. You know, Francisco Lindor, I'm calling it quietly, another 30 home run season as a shortstop, joins a pretty exclusive list headlined by Alex Rodriguez and Ernie Banks. Back-to-back seasons of 30 home runs for Lindor. And he's starting to kind of creep up on some Met seasons here that kind of put him in the best of all time type categories for the organization. We talked, I know, a little bit more about him last week just because he got to 25-25 mark and stuff like that. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, if you're the Mets, you really think you have to be building around him now, in a way. Which is kind of crazy. He's not super young anymore by any measure, but the fact of the matter is, he's your leader right now, both on the field and culturally in the clubhouse and everything. You got to want to keep that going, especially if he's just putting up the numbers that he just continues to put up year in and year out now.
I think the most impressive thing about him is it's been a long stretch where he's just been killing the ball and consistently hitting and delivering in big moments every night. Even last night, you know, he got an innings an inning going. And it just seems like his defense too has been huge. Like last night they turned 3 double plays, and he made some great plays up the middle. Because honestly, last night's game was really close. If it wasn't for 44-year-old Rich Hill walking 3 straight batters in the 8th inning,
Yeah.
you know, the Mets potentially could have lost that game. So he made great plays on both sides of the ball, and he's definitely been their MVP over a guy like Pete Alonso, who still is, I think, he's over the 30 homer mark as well. So yeah, if he continues to do what he's doing, I think the Mets are going to continue to win because he's like the leader. He's like the Aaron Judge of the Yankees.
No, I was about to say, literally, I don't think if Judge is having the year that he has, and it's pretty interesting, right? Judge is now on this little bit of a cold spell.
And they start losing.
Well, no, what I'm saying, though, is now people are talking a little bit more about Lindor and how Lindor is having maybe not quite as good numerically, but like collectively speaking, it's a very similar season to Judge in the sense of the spot that the team needs him to be in. And look, Carlos Mendoza said it yesterday. I'm agreeing with him. Like, he's just having great at bats right now, and when he puts bat on the ball, you feel confident no matter what. And that's one of those things as a baseball player, it's rare to kind of run into. And the fact of the matter is that for I guess a city to have multiple guys doing that in a season is pretty damn good. And for the Mets, it's huge. I mean, we wondered at the start of the year, or not even so much the start of the year, but as the season got going, like, who's going to be that guy? They need that guy, and it's very apparent that it's Lindor. This is now multiple years in a row that it's been Lindor. Lindor's the face of the Mets. I think I'm going to stake my claim to it. Lindor's the face of the Mets as it stands right now.
Yeah, and send Pete packing. He doesn't need to come back. I think they can move on from him and explore something else in the off season. And I think Pete just needs to go somewhere else anyway. I think maybe like a team that maybe an AL team. I know we can save that discussion probably for the off season, but just my early thoughts. I think you're right. I think Lindor is kind of the leader next year and is kind of the headliner of the team, as he should be, considering how he's played the last 2 years.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cut and dry at that point. All right, let's get into some updates here on some guys. Kodai Senga threw a high-intensity bullpen session. That was about 25 pitches in length, so things moving along with him. Again, hope that he comes back at some point, but either way, progressing along nicely and getting back from this calf strain that he has.
Is he going to have enough time? That's my thoughts. Or are they okay with just putting him in a playoff game immediately without any regular season games left?
Right.
They might cut it close.
Right.
Only 20 left.
I believe he's eligible to come off the IL on September 25th, and I believe that is
4 days before
before
the finale.
So it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. Now, obviously, the beauty with him, because he's on the 60 days, they can rehab him while on the IL. So who knows? Paul Blackburn will rejoin the Mets rotation for their September 9th through 11th series against the Blue Jays as it stands right now. He also threw 7 innings of rehab for Syracuse on Tuesday and looked really good in that outing. As we know, took the comebacker off his hand. Things are looking good and progressing good that he should be back when he's eligible next week.
Yeah, good depth piece for sure.
Yep. All right, let's get to some other guys here. Daniel Nunez won't be activated from the IL when he's eligible on September 10th. Kind of figured he hasn't been able to really do anything with his injury. Sean Reed Foley has resumed throwing, but the season for him is still very much so in doubt. As we know, he's been dealing with some mechanical stuff, nothing health-wise, but his season's very much so in doubt as it stands right now. And Christian Scott throwing off a mound. He incorporated changeup and sliders as well as his fastball in this. So, again, he's progressing along. Don't know, kind of the same boat in a way with Kodai Senga. Could he be back by the end of the year? It certainly seems possible. Reality of it, probably slimmer for Scott than it is Senga, I would say.
Yeah, starting to throw off a mound. I mean, again, it's you still have way more to do. Bullpens, simulated games.
Yeah.
It's just weird how these guys. I know they want to be positive, but like I heard a quote from him the other day that he will be back. Like, I mean, do you know it's September 5th?
Right.
Like, the season doesn't. I mean, if you make the playoffs, it will, but the season ends in 25 days.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how that's possible to do all that in 25 days.
It's one of those, I respect the attitude, but like probably need to be a little bit more realistic.
Yeah.
You know. All right, Pablo Reyes, nice little story for Syracuse this year. He was selected to the Mets. Alex Young was recalled from Syracuse. J.D. Martinez placed on the paternity list, so congratulations to him. DJ Stewart got recalled from Syracuse to take a spot on the roster in the meantime. I believe Martinez's last day on the paternity list, though, I believe is today. I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember the math on it now because it's supposed to be 3 days, but it could be a fourth day depending upon the timing of it. But either way, JD's probably going to be coming off at some point, and you'll see him at some point this weekend.
Yeah, so they've been winning without him. It's
Yeah.
his former team,
Yeah.
the Red Sox, who, man, I did say that they would lose to the the Red Sox last week, so they'd lose 2 of 3, and yeah, it was the complete opposite.
Well, you have redemption because the Mets do play the Reds, not the Red Sox, but the Reds this weekend. And then, obviously, as I mentioned, head to Toronto for 3 games. So do you feel as though the Reds have a similar shot to the Red Sox in your sense, or are you just going to circle back and wave the white flag on teams in red?
I think the Mets are going to lose 2 of 3.
Oh, wow.
They're winning too much just to make it make sense. You know how that goes.
That's fair, yeah.
It does. They shouldn't lose to this team. They can't lose to this team. But the way things go, I can see it coming, and for them, it's going to be very frustrating. So yeah, I'll say they lose 2 of 3, and then Toronto. Man, they're so weird. Such a weird team. I think they get 2 of 3 against Toronto. So yeah, that's not acceptable for what I think they're going to do.
Yeah. I think they come out getting 2 of 3 against each team. So I guess we're back to our normal roles and of me being on the positive side of things and you being on the pessimistic side of things. But yeah, I hear you though. I just the Reds are in a really weird spot. Like they'll fail to show up certain games. And then
Score 9 runs in the first.
Well, I was about to
against
say,
Houston.
I was about to say, put up a 9 spot against a team like Houston. So, yeah, I think the Reds could do that. And then Toronto, it's just so weird. Like I don't know. I could see them getting 1 against the Mets, but I think they handle business. They, like I mentioned though, these are series that the Mets need, right? I mean, obviously, coming up, you have those games against Phillies and in Atlanta and everything, but these are the games where you need to get so you can set yourself up for quote unquote worst case scenario type stuff.
And something I just thought about, Mets fans should be rooting for the Yankees this weekend.
It's true.
Because they're playing the Cubs. The Cubs have dropped a little bit, 4.5 out, 4 behind the Mets. But say that the Cubs, for some reason, swept the Yankees.
Yeah.
The Mets would be in trouble.
Yeah. We appreciate the Mets' help against Baltimore and the Red Sox of lately as well for the Yankees. So, all right, let's before we get out of here, touch on Rochester and Syracuse. Rochester weirdly dipped to 6th in the standings as it stands right now in the International League, but still remain 4.5 out. Weird how baseball works, as we know. But Red Wings home against Worcester this week. Back on the road next week against Indianapolis. Spencer Watkins activated from the injured list, and then Darren Baker selected by Washington. Nice story there, obviously. He's been a guy who's been with Rochester now for a couple seasons. It's done really well. Zach, guy from last week, Breasttree, recalled by Washington. Orlando Rebalta was optioned from Washington. And then the summer of prospects in Rochester continues. Robert Hassel, the third, assigned from AA Harrisburg. He is the third of the top outfield prospects behind James Wood and Dylan Cruz. Really good player, and he'll finish out the 2024 season in Rochester. Presumably, I wouldn't truly say auditioning, but I would imagine getting his feet wet for at least starting the year next year with the Red Wings.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how many games are left for the AAA teams can't be too many because they definitely end before
12,
maybe like a couple series.
12, I believe it's 15 or 16, depending upon if you have makeups. Rochester, I think, is 15.
Yeah, so
Or actually, no, sorry, 16 or 17. I'm counting wrong there. Sorry.
17.
Bingo.
Yeah, so but what I'm going to say is it looks like these teams are back to being mid.
Well,
3-7 for the Red Wings in the last 10, 4-6 for Syracuse.
Yeah.
Well, it was fun while it lasted.
yeah, Syracuse in much rougher shape, 12 games out. They're pretty much done, 17th in the IL. Home against Scranton Wilkes-Barre this week, and then back on the road against Worcester next week. Pretty cool. The tournament team I was with this past weekend helping out with, one of our catchers is one of the bullpen catchers for the Syracuse Mets, so that was pretty nice to have a gosh darn professional, as I called it, behind the dish.
He must be very busy all the time warming up all these arms.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. He had a bunch of the team issued stuff as his stuff. So, yeah, he says it's been a interesting, especially second half of the year for them. So, shout out to Drew. Anyway, Yonder Suarez assigned from Binghamton. Vinny Tottoli was granted his release. Tyler Omegle recalled to New York. I expect him back when Paul Blackburn is activated. Joe Hudson activated from the injured list. Wyatt Young and Trey McLaughlin assigned from AA Binghamton. And then Ty Adcock, Kyle Crick continue rehab assignments. They're now with High A Brooklyn. So that does it for our on the farm stuff with those teams. So that also does it for the podcast today, Kyle. Baseball season here entering the home stretch. We'll have a lot of headlines and stuff like that to get to. It's a busy time around here for all of us. High school sports restarting. Football back this weekend with the Bills. It's chaos here at FL1.
Yeah, and maybe the Yankees could make things a little better by winning this division. Playing a wild card series, man, it just, even for both teams, I know the Mets are going to get stuck probably doing it. I mean, they're not mathematically eliminated, but they do have, like I said, though, what did I say, 7 games against the Phillies, 3 against the Braves. If they somehow went crazy, like a 9-1, even though they probably won't, things could get interesting all of a sudden. And I would kind of be all for it. Have those 3 teams just all battling in the final, week and a half or so. But yeah, if you look around baseball, though, have you noticed the division races kind of suck?
Yeah.
Isn't it usually a little better than this?
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland had a moment there where people, I think, thought that they were going to be whatever. And I know their lead is 4. Is it still 4 games?
It's 4.5
So, yeah, I mean, that's an arm's length.
over the Twins and Royals.
Yeah. I mean, Houston would really have to have an issue out west.
Yeah, that's a 5.5 difference.
The NL West equally is, well, actually, no, I think it's probably
4.5. Padres are rolling.
Padres are still.
They got a walk-off last night again.
True. The NL Central Brewers have been able to keep everybody at arm's length all year.
Yeah, the Cubs are 9 out in that one.
Yeah, so I mean, outside of I guess
Mets are 7.5 out.
the AL East, really, in terms of how tight it is, it's not going to be a close deal for the most part.
Yeah. Maybe we'll wait, another couple weeks. But I was wondering what your final wild card and division winners would be. We'll probably do that another day.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I mean the division ones are pretty much wrapped up outside of, I guess, really maybe the AL East exclusively in that sense. I don't know.
Even the wild card, like the Red Sox are 5.5 out.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to catch the Royals, Twins, or one of the AL East teams.
Right.
So you kind of already have that set for the AL, and then you go to the NL. I guess unless the Cubs make some kind of crazy run, or the Cardinals, it's going to be the Mets as as fighting with the Braves and Diamondbacks for the three spots.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe baseball this year isn't as great. Like the ending, I know a lot of teams are like average, and like it's more like it seems more even.
I see what you mean, yeah.
But it doesn't seem like that exciting. Like, oh, we have one AL East race, big deal.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. It'll be interesting. Maybe we can dive a little bit more into that next week.
But I hope the Padres catch the Dodgers. That would be epic.
Yeah. I'm not going to disapprove of that. So, all right, Kyle, enjoy the weekend. We have a lot of other stuff here on tap even today that we got to get to. So we'll be back, myself and Kyle and Jim Center-Cropey on air live-wise in a little bit for football betting stuff. But enjoy the weekend, Kyle. First football weekend. I know you're looking forward to your Bills You'll be watching from home, presumably, at least this week. I'm assuming it'd be chaos up at Orchard Park for week 1 up there.
Yeah, and I'll have Scott Hansen.
My guy.
Even though I'm not a fan.
Sure, you're a Siciliano guy.
Yeah, and you see what he just got?
No.
The Browns radio job.
That's actually a pretty good job.
Big Cleveland fan growing up, and I think he probably moved back from LA
Well,
because he lived in LA for a while, and NFL Network let him go.
it's tough. I know the Browns radio play-by-play guy had to more or less he had to retire because of health reasons. So, but that's a pretty big job to get. That's one of the more coveted ones in terms of the local stuff. So, yeah, it's tough for you. I know.
Yeah,
Scott. I know you're not a Hanson guy.
2 years now with Hansen, and man, it's just so different. I can't even begin to explain it. Andrew's just so much quicker and on top of things, and Scott just likes to, what I call yap a lot, where Andrew's more into the football stuff, which he should be.
That's fair. I don't know. I just can't do that to Scott. Proud Syracuse alumni football player, Scott Hansen.
Yeah, it makes sense that he's from Syracuse.
He's not from Syracuse. He
went to Syracuse.
Played football for the Cuse.
Give me the Ohio guy all day.
Well, that's just messed up. All right, Kyle, we'll catch up, obviously, me and you in a little bit. We'll catch up with everybody else here next week on Concrete Jungle. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. We'll talk next week.